Welcome back to Thinking Outside the House. This is the podcast that explores the world of real estate beyond owning your first home. My name is Ed Pluchar. I'm a real estate agent, a homeowner, an investor, and today we continue our series on steps to begin investing in real estate. We're focusing, of course, on being the owner of the property and not like REITs or anything like that. We've covered so far why real estate is a good investment and how to set a goal to accomplish. Then we want to do, how do you determine what you need to buy in order to match that goal? So last time I kind of offhandedly said, all right, well, say your goal is to have income, cash flow from your properties of $2,500 a month. And if that's your goal, let's look at a few of your options in real estate investing. So the first one, and we're mainly focused on, these are places where people live, right? We're not doing storage units or commercial property in the sense that there's retail or offices. We're doing residential type places where people live. One distinction we'll come to in a minute. But first one is single family homes. And if you get into the turnkey rental market, it's very easy to find homes that you could purchase and get a cash flow of anywhere from $100 to $300 a door on that investment. So it depends, of course, on what the price is, how much you're going to put down to see whether it's a good investment. But we'll use that number just as an approximation of how many homes you would need to buy in order to get your $2,500 a month. So if you're at home doing the math, it probably didn't take you long, but you're going to need approximately 12 homes. We're saying 12 separate buildings, which will also be relevant in just a moment. You might think, okay, well, $200 a door, you're going to need a little more than that, Ed. Yeah, fine. We're just estimating here. So call it 12 for now, call it 13 if you want to do the math at home. The nice things about single family homes are the relatively easy lending process. It's just like buying a home with a little bit more paperwork, slightly stricter standards. You'll pay a little more in interest, but if you've been through the home buying process for your own home, it'll be very, very familiar to you. There's not much that's different about this process. When we're looking at the rental picture, the investment picture, single family homes are one building, right? But they still have all the components, meaning they all have a roof, they all have a furnace, they all have an AC unit or window units perhaps, they all have appliances, they all have floors and things like that. You would have to count on replacing all of those items. So in that sense, a single family home has the maximum per unit cost to maintain. And that's usually what drives down the cash flow you're going to see of that $100 to $300. You'll see that in a minute. Next up are our multifamily residential buildings. Now, these are anywhere from 2 to 4 units. And there's a big distinction at 5 units, which makes it a commercial loan. And again, we'll get to that in just a minute. But focusing on the 2 to 4 unit buildings. And what you can get from those is usually a little bit better in terms of cash flow because you're starting to tap into the scales of economy. And what I often see is, especially on the turnkey market, and other places as well. And in fact, in my own experience, to some extent, you'll get a cash flow of about $300 to $500 a door. Can be less. It's usually not a ton more than 500. That'd be tough to make, but we'll also get to that in just a minute. So if your goal is $2,500, you're going to need about 6 doors, meaning 6 units, and that would equal about 2 to 3 buildings. So you could have one duplex and one quadplex, and then you've got your 6 units, or you could do any combination thereof. You're taking a step up in the scales of economy. So when you have to replace a roof, you're actually covering 4 homes instead of just one. So you've got that efficiency there. Often you still have all the same number of appliances though, so you're not really going to scale and gain anything from appliances in that sense. But it's something to consider. What's nice about this is that it's still an FHA conventional loan. So again, it's going to be very similar to your single family home purchase when you bought your own home. Again, a little more paperwork, a little higher interest rate. With the additional units, you're probably also going to spend a little more on things like an inspection. But that just kind of comes with the territory of moving up in scale in these multifamily buildings. Finally, and this is where I have least experience, so I'm just kind of speaking from what I've been able to glean. This is multifamily space. So this is anything 5 units or more becomes technically a commercial property and it needs a commercial loan. And that's just financed a lot differently. So that's the downside, is that you're going to be in a whole different kind of ball game as far as actually making this purchase. And the bigger the building you get, say you're into 20 units or 50 units or 100 units, even more than that, you tend to have multiple partners or investors involved and not just yourself anymore. So that obviously complicates things a great deal. You can get cash flow kind of in the same territory. And I've heard these numbers all over the place, but let's use that $300 to $500 a door again. And, if you can do better, more power to you, as they say. But in that vein, you're going to need one 6-unit building to do it. So where in the past other examples, we had 12 units and then we had 2 to 3 units. Now you just have 1 unit, and you're really banging on that efficiency as far as one roof covers 6 units for you instead of just 2 to 4 or 1. Pardon me. So that helps you a great deal. So you're going to actually see probably a little bit better cash flow than the 2 to 4 unit building. In fact, I'd say you certainly would. So these numbers generally do improve over time. The buildings can usually take a little time to stabilize when there's a transition of ownership. You're almost always going to uncover things that were not done that should have been done, or things you thought were okay and were not okay. If you own your own home, you know what that's like. But over time, you do get it stabilized. You kind of get things in a position where the tenants are happy, or at least reasonably happy, and the building is in good shape and nothing's broken or breaking down. And over that same period of time, your cash flow will increase, not only because expenses are calming down, but also because rents are going to start to gradually go up, right? Over time, we're going to see rents go up, but your payment stays flat. So if those two numbers work that way, your cash flow over time will increase. I am aware of investors who pull $1,000 out of a single family home, and that's cash flow per month. They've really got things dialed in where they don't have a mortgage anymore. They've got the property in great shape. They've got a great tenant. They're in an area that provides a high tenant rent amount, and some of them even manage their own. So there's very little to no expense, I should say. I shouldn't say there's no expense, but there's very little expense relative to the amount of rent they're collecting. Final thing, just to kind of put it out there, if a typical family, a typical household is making about $60,000 a year, and that's just the last time I heard it. It could be more now with numbers getting where they are. But using that as an example, and if you want to break that down to $5,000 a month, we're now going to be looking at 24 single-family homes, or 4 to 6 multifamily residential buildings, or one 12-unit building. So again, you see how the economies of scale play into that. The other thing to keep in mind is generally, but not always, generally you're going to pay more per door for those single-family homes, and that's going to mean more down payment that you're going to have to put up. And so if you're thinking about getting into the game and approaching this goal of $5,000 a month, it may or may not be the best tactic to approach the single family homes, knowing that you got to put a ton of money into it just to reach that level. But at any rate, there's a lot to explore there. There's a lot we're not able to cover just in a simple podcast, unfortunately. And there's a lot of research you would have to do on your own. However, if you are interested in going over some of the numbers or how this works, we definitely can help you with that, especially with the 2 examples at the beginning. My number is 815-931-2279. My email is ed@theplutrargroup.com. And as always, this is not considered particular financial or investment advice. It's more educational, but we can help you get pointed in the right direction. You should always seek out professional help for these things. All right. Thank you for joining us.